Hi there, how are you? Um, so I'm getting back into the swing of reading, and I'm finishing up stuff that I left hanging. So this will be the completion of the Report short story that I started, and I went back to see where I left off in my last video, and I was so tired. I'm so sorry. That was almost like impossible to watch. Hopefully, nobody actually watches it and you just listen because I think my eyes were just closed the entire time. So, but this like new schedule, new energy, same old energy drinks. So, I'll get this one, I'll get through easily. I did 1984 yesterday, like 2.5 hours. So, I don't have any problem with this. We did 3 chapters last time, and what happened was very very on point with the movie if you've seen it. We were introduced to this futuristic system of law enforcement where there are these I might get terminology confused with the movie if they changed it, so I'm sorry. But they have precogs who are able to spit out random premonitions, sort of, and the law enforcement's job is to decipher it and see who to go get and when for what crime that they're going to commit. And so crime rate has dropped, like, I don't remember if they said 100%, but it's an incredibly effective system. But there is the question of the morality of using the precogs. I mean, they were described very ungenerously. So yeah. So, but of course, there was a moment where we left off where Anderton, the police chief, I believe, the pioneer of this department and whatnot, he got his name in the tube. So he is dealing with that. So yeah. And the last line was, I want him neutralized as soon as possible. So we're gonna continue where we left off. Oh, hi, L4. How are you? I'm glad you're popping up, even with the new schedule changes that I'm trying to get comfortable with. I'm doing all right. Trying to get back into some sort of a routine of a hobby that I like so that things are easier. But yeah, after this, I'm going to play a horror game. I'm going to finally do it. It helps that with this new schedule it's actually daylight outside, but let's just pretend it's still nighttime. So, okay, I left off on chapter 3. I don't think this will be very long. We've read 8 out of 21 pages, so we're gonna get through this quick. I hope. We'll try. So yeah. Let's get into it. This is chapter 4. Cold, light rain beat against the pavement as the car moved through the dark streets of New York City toward the police building. You can see the point, one of the men said to Anderton. If you were in his place, you'd act just as decisively. Sullen and resentful, Anderton stared straight ahead. Anyhow, the man went on, you're just one of many. Thousands of people have gone to that detention camp. You won't be lonely. As a matter of fact, you may not want to leave. Helplessly, Anderton watched the pedestrians hurrying along the rain-swept sidewalks. He felt no strong emotion. He was aware only of an overpowering fatigue. Dully, he checked off the street numbers. They were getting near the police station. This Whitworth seems to know how to take advantage of an opportunity, one of the men observed conversationally. Did you ever meet him? Briefly, Anderton answered. He wanted your job, so he framed you. Are you sure of that? Anderton grimaced. Does it matter? I was just curious. The man eyed him languidly. So you're the ex-commissioner of police. People in the camp will be glad to see you coming. They'll remember you. No doubt, Anderton agreed. Whitworth sure didn't waste any time. Kaplan's lucky. With an official like that in charge. The man looked at Anderton almost pleadingly. You're really convinced it's a plot, eh? Of course. You wouldn't harm a hair on Kaplan's head. For the first time in history, pre-crime goes wrong? An innocent man is framed by one of those cards? Maybe there have been other innocent people, right? It's quite possible, Anderton admitted listlessly. Maybe the whole system can break down. Sure, you're not going to commit a murder, and maybe none of them were. Is that why you told Kaplan you wanted to keep yourself outside? Were you hoping to prove the system wrong? I've got an open mind if you want to talk about it. Another man leaned over and asked, just between the two of us, is there really anything to this plot stuff? Are you really being framed? Anderton sighed. At that point, he wasn't certain himself. Perhaps he was trapped in a closed, meaningless time circle with no motive and no beginning. In fact, he was almost ready to concede that he was the victim of a weary, neurotic fantasy spawned by growing insecurity. Without a fight, he was willing to give himself up. A vast weight of possible exhaustion lay upon him. He was struggling against the impossible, and all the cards were stacked against him. The sharp squeal of tires roused him. Frantically, the driver struggled to control the car, tugging at the wheel and slamming on the brakes as a massive bread truck loomed up from the fog and ran directly across the lane ahead. Had he gunned the motor instead, he might have saved himself for a brief instant and then smashed head-on into the bread truck. Under Anderton, the seat lifted up and flung him face forward against the door. Pain, sudden, intolerable, seemed to burst in his brain as he lay gasping and trying feebly to pull himself to his knees. Somewhere the crackle of fire echoed dismally, a patch of hissing brilliance winking in the swirls of mist making their way into the twisted bulk of the car. Hands from outside the car reached for him. Slowly, he became aware that he was being dragged through the rent that had been the door. A heavy seat cushion was shoved briskly aside, and all at once he found himself on his feet, leaning heavily against a dark shape and being guided into the shadows of an alley a short distance from the car. In the distance, police sirens wailed. "You'll live," a voice grated in his ear, low and urgent. It was a voice he had never heard before, as unfamiliar and harsh as the rain beating into his face. "Can you hear what I'm saying?" "Yes," Anderton acknowledged. He plucked aimlessly at the ripped sleeve of his shirt. A cut on his cheek was beginning to throb. Confused, he tried to orient himself. "You're not... Stop talking and listen." The man was heavy-set, almost fat. Now his big hands held Anderton propped against the wet brick wall of the building, out of the rain and the flickering light of the burning car. "We had to do it that way," he said. "It was the only alternative. We didn't have much time. We thought Kaplan would keep you at this place longer." "Who are you?" Anderton managed. The moist, rain-streaked face twisted into a humorless grin. "My name's Fleming. You'll see me again. We have about 5 seconds before the police get here. Then we're back where we started." A flat packet was stuffed into Anderton's hands. "That's enough loot to keep you going. And here's a full set of identification there. We'll contact you from time to time." His grin increased and became a nervous chuckle. Until you proved your point. Anderton blinked. It's a frame-up, then? Of course. Sharply, the man swore. You mean they got you to believe it, too? I thought... Anderton had trouble talking. One of his front teeth seemed to be loose. Hostility toward Whitwer, replace my wife and a younger man, natural resentment. Don't kid yourself, the other said. You know better than that. This whole business was worked out carefully. They had every phase of it under control. The card was set to pop the day Whitwer appeared. They've already got the first part wrapped up. Whitwer is commissioner, and you're a hunted criminal. Who's behind it? Your wife. Anderton's head spun. You're positive? The man laughed. You bet your life. He glanced quickly around. Here come the police. Take off down this alley, grab a bus, get yourself into the slum section, rent a room, and buy a stack of magazines to keep you busy. Get other clothes. You're smart enough to take care of yourself. Don't try to leave Earth. They've got all the intersystem transports screened. If you can keep low for the next 7 days, you've got it made. Who are you? Anderton demanded. Fleming let go of him. Cautiously, he moved to the entrance of the alley and peered out. The first police car had to rest on the damp pavement, its motor spinning tinnily. It crept suspiciously toward the smoldering ruin that had been Kaplan's car. Inside the wreck, the squad of men were stirring feebly, beginning to creep painfully through the tangle of steel and plastic out into the cold rain. Consider us a protective society, Fleming said softly, his plump, expressionless face shining with moisture. A sort of police force that watches the police to see, he added, that everything stays on an even keel. His thick hand shot out. Stumbling, Anderton was knocked away from him, half falling into the shadows and damp debris that littered the alley. Get going, and Fleming told him sharply, and don't discard that packet. As Anderton felt his way hesitantly toward the far exit of the alley, the man's last words drifted to him. Study it carefully, and you may still survive. Chapter 5. The identification cards described him as Ernest Temple, an unemployed electrician drawing a weekly subsistence from the state of New York, with a wife and 4 children in Buffalo and less than $100 in assets. A sweat-stained green card gave him permission to travel and to maintain no fixed address. A man looking for work needed to travel. He might have to go a long way. As he rode across town in the almost empty bus, Anderton studied the description of Ernest Temple. Obviously, the cards had been made out with him in mind, for all the measurements fitted. After a time, he wondered about the fingerprints and the brainwave pattern. They couldn't possibly stand comparison. The wallet full of cards could get him past only the most cursory examinations. But it was something. And with the ID cards came $10,000 in bills. He pocketed the money and cards and then turned to the neatly typed message in which they had been enclosed. At first he could make no sense of it. For a long time he studied it, perplexed. The existence of a majority logically implies a corresponding majority. The bus had entered the vast slum region, the tumbled miles of cheap hotels and broken-down tenements that had sprung up after the mass destruction of the war. It slowed to a stop and Anderton got to his feet. A few passengers idly observed his cut cheek and damaged clothing. Ignoring them, he stepped down onto the rain-swept curb. Beyond collecting the money due to him, the hotel clerk was not interested. Anderton climbed the steps to the second floor and entered the narrow, musty-smelling room that now belonged to him. Gratefully, he locked the door and pulled down the window shades. The room was small but clean. Bed, dresser, scenic calendar, chair, lamp, a radio with a slot for the insertion of quarters. He dropped a quarter into it and threw himself heavily down on the bed. All main stations carried the police bulletin. It was novel, exciting, something unknown to the present generation. An escaped criminal. The public was avidly interested. "This man has used the advantage of his high position to carry out an initial escape," the announcer was saying with professional indignation. Because of his high office, he had access to preview data, and the trust placed in him permitted to evade the normal process of detection and relocation. During the period of his tenure, he exercised his authority to send countless potentially guilty individuals to their proper confinement, this sparing the lives of innocent victims. This man, John Allison Anderton, was instrumental in the original creation of the pre-crime system, the prophylactic pre-detection of criminals through the ingenious use of mutant precogs, capable of previewing the future events and transferring orally that data to analytical machinery. These three precogs, in their vital function. The voice faded out as he left the room and entered the tiny bathroom. There, he stripped off his coat and shirt and ran hot water into the wash bowl. He began bathing the cut on his cheek. At the drugstore on the corner, he had bought iodine and Band-Aids, a razor, comb, toothbrush, and other small things he would need. The next morning, he intended to find a second-hand clothing store and buy more suitable clothing. After all, he was now an unemployed electrician, not an accident-damaged commissioner of police. In the other room, the radio blared on. Only subconsciously aware of it, he stood in front of the cracked mirror, examining a broken tooth. The system of three precogs finds its genesis in the computers of the middle decades of the century. How are the results of an electronic computer checked? By feeding data into a second computer of identical design. But two computers are not sufficient. If each computer arrived at a different answer, it is impossible to tell a priori which is correct. The solution, based on a careful study of statistical method, is to utilize a third computer to check the results of the first two. In this manner, a so-called majority report is obtained. It can be assumed with fair probability that the agreement of 2 out of the 3 computers indicates which of the alternative results is accurate. It would not be likely that 2 computers would arrive at identically incorrect solutions. Anderton dropped the towel he was clutching and raced into the other room. Trembling, he bent to catch the blaring words of the radio. Unanimity of all 3 precogs is a hoped-for but seldom achieved phenomenon. Acting Commissioner Whitwer explains, it is much more common to obtain a collaborative majority report of 2 precogs, plus a minority report of some slight variation, usually with reference to time or place from the third mutant. This is explained by the theory of multiple futures. If only one time path existed, precognitive information would be of no importance, since no possibility would exist in possessing this information of altering the future. In the pre-crimes agency's work, we must first of all assume. Frantically, Anderton paced around the tiny room. Majority report. Only 2 of the precogs had concurred on the material underlying the card. That was the meaning of the message enclosed with the packet. The report of the third precog, the minority report, was somehow of importance. Why? His watch told him that it was after midnight. Page would be off duty. He wouldn't be back in the monkey block until the next afternoon. It was a slim chance, but worth taking. Maybe Page would cover for him, and maybe not. He would have to risk it. He had to see the minority report. Chapter 6. Between noon and 1 o'clock, the rubbish-littered streets swarmed with people. He chose that time, the busiest part of the day, to make his call. Selecting a phone booth in a patron-teeming Superdrug store, he dialed the familiar police number and stood holding the cold receiver to his ear. Deliberately, he had selected the odd, not the vid line, In spite of his second-hand clothing and seedy, unshaven appearance, he might be recognized. The receptionist was new to him. Cautiously, he gave Paige's extension. If Whitwer were removing the regular staff and putting in his satellites, he might find himself talking to a total stranger. "Hello," Paige's gruff voice came. Relieved, Anderton glanced around. Nobody was paying any attention to him. The shoppers wandered among the merchandise, going about their daily routines. "Can you talk?" he asked. "Or are you tied up?" There was a moment of silence. He could picture Paige's mild face torn with uncertainty as he wildly tried to decide what to do. At last came the halting words. "Why are you calling here?" Ignoring the question, Anderton said, "I didn't recognize the receptionist. New personnel?" "Brand new," Paige agreed in a thin, strangled voice. "Big turnovers these days." "So I hear." Tensely, Anderton asked, "How's your job? Still safe?" "Wait a minute." The receiver was put down and the muffled sound of steps came in Anderton's ear. It was followed by the quick slam of a door being hastily shut. Paige returned. "We can talk better now," he said hoarsely. "How much better?" "Not a great deal. Where are you?" "Strolling through Central Park," Anderton said, enjoying the sunlight. For all he knew, Paige had gone to make sure the line tap was in place. Right now, an airborne police team was probably on its way, but he had to take the chance. "I'm in a new field," he said curtly. "I'm an electrician these days." "Oh?" Paige said, baffled. "I thought maybe you had some work for me. If it can be arranged, I'd like to drop by and examine your basic computing equipment, especially the data and analytical banks in the monkey block." After a pause, Paige said, "It might be arranged, if it's really important." "It is," Anderton assured him. "When would be best for you?" "Well," Paige said, struggling, "I'm having a repair team come in to look at the intercom equipment. The acting commissioner wants it to be improved so he can operate quicker. You might trail along." "I'll do that. About when?" "Say 4 o'clock. Entrance B, level 6. I'll meet you." "Fine," Anderton agreed, and already starting to hang up. "I hope you're still in charge when I get there." He hung up and rapidly left the booth. A moment later, he was pushing through the dense pack of people crammed into the nearby cafeteria. Nobody would locate him there. He had about 3.5 hours to wait, and it was going to seem a lot longer. It proved to be the longest wait of his life before he finally met Paige as arranged. The first thing Paige said was, "You're out of your mind. Why the hell did you come back?" "I'm not back for long." Tautly, Anderton prowled around the monkey block, systematically locking one door after another. "Don't let anybody in. I can't take any chances." "You should have quit when you were ahead." In an agony of apprehension, Paige followed after him. "Whitwer is making hay, hand over fist. He's got the whole country screaming for your blood." Ignoring him, Anderton snapped open the main control bank of the analytical machinery. Which of the 3 monkeys gave the Minority Report? "Don't question me. I'm getting out." On his way to the door, Paige halted briefly, pointed to the middle figure, and then disappeared. The door closed. Anderton was alone. The middle one. He knew that one well. The dwarfed, haunched figure had sat buried in its wiring and relays for 15 years. As Anderton approached, it didn't look up. With eyes glazed and blank, it contemplated a world that did not exist yet, blind to the physical reality that lay around it. Jerry was 24 years old. Originally, he had been classified as a hydrocephalic idiot. When he reached the age of 6, the psych testers had identified the precog talent, buried under layers of tissue corrosion. Placed in a government-operated training school, the latent talent had been cultivated. By the time he was 9, the talent had advanced to a useful stage. Jerry, however, remained in the aimless chaos of idiocy. The burgeoning faculty had absorbed the totality of his personality. Squatting down, Anderton began deassembling the protective shields that guarded the tape reels stored in the analytical machinery. Using schematics, he traced the leads back from the final stages of the integrated computers to the point where Jerry's individual equipment branched off. Within minutes, he was shakily lifting out 2 half-hour tapes, recent rejected data not fused with the majority reports. Consulting with the code chart, he selected the section of tape which referred to his particular card. A tape scanner was mounted nearby. Holding his breath, he inserted the tap, activated the transport, and listened. It only took a second. From the first statement of the report, it was clear what happened. He had what he wanted. He could stop looking. Jerry's vision had misphased. Because of the erratic nature of precognition, he was examining a time area slightly different from that of his companions. For him, the report that Anderton would commit a murder was an event to be integrated along with everything else. That assertion, in Anderton's reaction, was one more piece of datum. Obviously, Jerry's report superseded the majority report. Having been informed that he would commit a murder, Anderton would change his mind and not do so. The preview of the murder had cancelled out the murder. Prophylaxis had occurred simply in his being informed. Already, a new time path had been created, but Jerry was outvoted. Trembling, Anderton rewound the tape and clicked on the recording head. At high speed, he made a copy of the report, restored the original, and removed the duplicate from the transport. Here was the proof that the card was invalid, obsolete. All he had to do was show it to Whitwer. His own stupidity amazed him. Undoubtedly, Whitwer had seen the report, and in spite of it, had assumed the job of commissioner, had kept the police teams out. Whitwer didn't intend to back down. He wasn't concerned with Anderton's innocence. What, then, could he do? Who else would be interested? "You damn fool!" a voice behind him grated, wild with anxiety. Quickly he turned. His wife stood at one of the doors in her police uniform, her eyes frantic with dismay. "Don't worry," he told her briefly, displaying the reel of tape. "I'm leaving." Her face distorted, Lisa rushed frantically up to him. "Paige said you were here, but I couldn't believe it. He shouldn't have let you in. He just doesn't understand what you are." "What am I?" Anderton inquired caustically. "Before you answer that, maybe you better listen to this tape." "I don't want to listen to it. I just want you to get out of here. Ed Whitwer knows somebody's down here. Paige is trying to keep him occupied, but..." She broke off, her head turned stiffly to one side. "He's here now. He's gonna force his way in." "Haven't you got any influence? Be gracious and charming. He'll probably forget about me." Lisa looked at him with bitter reproach. "There's a ship parked on the roof. If you want to get away..." Her voice choked, and for an instant she was silent. Then she said, "I'll be taking off in a minute or so. If you want to come..." "I'll come," Anderton said. He had no other choice. He had secured his tape, his proof, but he hadn't worked out any method of leaving. Gladly, he hurried after the slim figure of his wife as she strode from the block, through a side door and down a supply corridor, her heels clicking loudly in the deserted gloom. "It's a good fast ship," she told him over her shoulder. "It's emergency fueled, ready to go. I was going to supervise some of the teams." Chapter 7. Behind the wheel of the high-velocity police cruiser, Anderton outlined what the Minority Report tape contained. Lisa listened without comment, her face pinched and strained, her hands clasped tensely in her lap. Below the ship, the war-ravaged rural countryside spread out like a relief map, the vacant regions between cities crater-pitted and dotted with the ruins of farms and small industrial plants. "I wonder," she said when he had finished, "how many times this has happened before?" "A Minority Report? A great many times. I mean, one precog misphased, using the report of the others as data, superseding them." Her eyes dark and serious, she added, "Perhaps a lot of the people in the camps are like you." "No," Anderton insisted. But he was beginning to feel uneasy about it too. "I was in a position to see the card, to get a look at the report. That's what did it." "But," Lisa gestured significantly, "perhaps all of them would have reacted that way. We could have told them the truth." "It would have been far too great a risk," he answered stubbornly. "Risk? Chance? Uncertainty? With the precogs around?" Lisa laughed sharply. Anderton concentrated on steering the fast little ship. "This is a unique case," he repeated, "and we have an immediate problem. We can tackle the theoretical aspects later on. I have to get this tape to the proper people before your bright young friend demolishes it." "You're taking it to Kaplan?" "I certainly am." He tapped the rail of tape which lay on the seat between them. "He'll be interested. Proof that his life isn't in danger ought to be a vital concern to him." From her purse, Lisa shakily got a cigarette case. "And you think he'll help you?" "He may, or he may not. It's a chance worth taking." "How did you manage to go underground so quickly?" Lisa asked. "A completely effective disguise is difficult to contain." "All it takes is money," he answered evasively. As she smoked, Lisa pondered. "Probably Kaplan will protect you," she said. "He's quite powerful." "I thought he was only a retired general." "Technically, that's what he is, but Whitwer got out the dossier on him. Kaplan heads an unusual kind of exclusive veterans organization. It's actually a kind of club with a few restricted members. High officers only, an international class from both sides of the war. Here in New York, they maintain a great mansion of a house, 3 glossy paper productions, and occasional TV coverage that cost them a small fortune." "What are you trying to say?" "Only this. You've convinced me that you're innocent. I mean, it's obvious that you won't commit a murder, but you must realize now that the original report, the Majority Report, was not a fake. Nobody falsified it. Ed Whitwer didn't create it. There is no plot against you, then there never was. If you're going to accept the Minority Report as genuine, you'll have to accept the Majority one also." Reluctantly, he agreed. "I suppose so." "Ed Whitwer," Lisa continued, "is acting in complete good faith. He really believes you're a potential criminal. And why not? He's got the Majority Report sitting on his desk, but you have that card folded up in your pocket." "I destroyed it," Anderton said quietly. Lisa leaned earnestly toward him. Ed Whitwer isn't motivated by any desire to get your job, she said. He's motivated by the same desire that has always dominated you. He believes in pre-crime. He wants the system to continue. I've talked to him, and I'm convinced he's telling the truth. Anderton asked. Do you want me to take this reel to Whitwer? If I do, he'll destroy it. Nonsense, Lisa retorted. The originals have been in his hands from the start. He could have destroyed them any time he wished. That's true, Anderton conceded. Quite possibly he didn't know. Of course he didn't. Look at it this way. If Kaplan gets hold of that tape, the police will be discredited. Can't you see why? It would prove that the majority report was in error. Ed Whitwer is absolutely right. You have to be taken in if pre-crime is to survive. You're thinking of your own safety, but think for a moment about the system. Leaning over, she stubbed out her cigarette and fumbled in her purse for another. Which means more to you, your own personal safety or the existence of the system? My safety, Anderton answered without hesitation. You're positive? If the system can only survive by imprisoning innocent people, then it deserves to be destroyed. My personal safety is important because I'm a human being, and furthermore, from her purse, Lisa got out an incredibly tiny pistol. I believe, she told him huskily, that I have my finger on the firing release. I've never used a weapon like this before, but I'm willing to try. After a pause, Anderton asked, You want me to turn the ship around? Is that it? Yes, back to the police building. I'm sorry. If you could put the good of the system above your own keep your sermon, Anderton told her. I'll take the ship back, but I'm not going to listen to your defense of a code of behavior that no intelligent man could subscribe to. Lisa's lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. Holding the pistol tightly, she sat facing him, her eyes fixed intently on him as he swung the ship in a broad arc. A few loose articles rattled from the glove compartment as the little craft turned on a radical slant, on wing rising majestically until it points straight up. Both Anderton and his wife were supported by the constraining metal arms of their seats, but not so the third member of the party. Out of the corner of his eye, Anderton saw a flash of motion. A sound came simultaneously, the clawing struggle of a large man as he abruptly lost his footing and plunged into the reinforced wall of the ship. What followed happened quickly. Fleming scrambled instantly to his feet. Lurching and wary, one arm lashing out for the woman's pistol. Anderton was too startled to cry out. Lisa turned, saw the man, and screamed. Fleming knocked the gun from her hand, sending it clattering to the floor. Grunting, Fleming shoved her aside and retrieved the gun. Sorry, he gasped, straightening up as best he could. I thought she might talk more. That's why I waited. You were here when Anderton began and stopped. It was obvious that Fleming and his men had kept him under surveillance. The existing of Lisa's ship had been duly noted and factored in, and while Lisa had debated whether it would be wise to fly him to safety, Fleming had crept into the storage compartment of the ship. Perhaps, Fleming said, you'd better give me that reel of tape. His moist, clumsy fingers groped for it. You're right. Whitwer would have melted it down to a puddle. Kaplan, too? Anderton asked numbly, still dazed by the appearance of the man. Kaplan is working with Whitwer. That's why his name showed on line 5 of the card. Which one of them is the actual boss, we can't tell. Possibly neither. Fleming tossed the tiny pistol away and got out his own heavy-duty military weapon. You pulled a real flub in taking off with this woman. I told you she was back of the whole thing. I can't believe that, Anderton protested. You've got no sense. This ship was warmed up by Whitworth's order. They wanted to fly you out of the building so that we couldn't get to you. With you on your own, separated from us, you didn't stand a chance. A strange look passed over Lisa's stricken features. It's not true, she whispered. Whitworth never saw this ship. I was going to supervise. You almost got away with it, Fleming interrupted inexorably. We'll be luck if a police patrol ship isn't hanging on us. There wasn't time to check. He squatted down as he spoke, directly behind the woman's chair. The first thing is to get this woman out of the way. We'll have to drag you completely out of this area. Paige tipped off Whitworth on your new disguise, and you can be sure has been widely broadcast. Still crouching, Fleming seized hold of Lisa, tossing his heavy gun to Anderton. He expertly tilted her chin up until her temple was shoved back against the seat. Lisa clawed frantically at him. A thin, terrified wail rose in her throat. Ignoring her, Fleming closed his great hands around her neck and began relentlessly to squeeze. No bullet wound, he explained, gasping. She's gonna fall out. Natural accident. It happens all the time. But in this case, her neck will be broken first. It seemed strange that Anderton waited so long. As it was, Fleming's thick fingers were cruelly embedded in the woman's pale flesh before he lifted the butt of the heavy-duty pistol and brought it down on the back of Fleming's skull. The monstrous hands relaxed. Staggered, Fleming's head fell forward and he sagged against the wall of the ship. Trying feebly to collect himself, he began dragging his body upward. Anderton hit him again, this time above the left eye. He fell back and lay still. Struggling to breathe, Lisa remained for a moment huddled over, her body swaying back and forth. Then gradually, color crept back into her face. Can you take the controls? Anderton asked, shaking her, his voice urgent. Yes, I think so. Almost mechanically, she reached for the wheel. I'll be all right. Don't worry about me. This pistol is Army Ordnance issue, but it's not from the way. It's one of the useful new ones they've developed. I could be a long way off, but there's just a chance. He climbed back to where Fleming lay spread out on the deck. Trying not to touch the man's head, he tore open his coat and rummaged in his pockets. A moment later, Fleming's sweat-sodden wallet rested in his hands. Todd Fleming, according to his identification, was an Army major attached to the Internal Intelligence Department of Military Information. Among the various papers was a document signed by General Leopold Kaplan stating that Fleming was under special protection of his own group, the International Veterans League. Fleming and his men were operating under Kaplan's orders. The bread truck, the accident, had been deliberately rigged. It meant that Kaplan had deliberately kept him out of police hands. The plan went back to the original contact in his home, when Kaplan's men had picked him up as he was packing. Incredulous, he realized what had really happened. Even then, they were making sure they got him before the police. From the start, it had been an elaborate strategy to make certain that Whitworth would fail to arrest him. You were telling the truth, Anderton said to his wife as he climbed back in the seat. Can we get hold of Whitworth? Mutely, she nodded. Indicating the communication circuit of the dashboard, she asked, What did you find? Get Whitworth for me. I want to talk to him as soon as I can. It's very urgent. Jerkily, she dialed, got the closed channel mechanical circuit, and raised police headquarters in New York. A visual panorama of petty police officials flashed by before a tiny replica of Ed Whitwer's features appeared on the screen. "Remember me?" Anderton asked him. Whitwer blanched. "Good God. What happened? Lisa, are you bringing him in?" Abruptly, his eyes fastened on the gun in Anderton's hands. "Look," he said savagely, "don't do anything to her. Whatever you may think, she's not responsible." "I've already found that out," Anderton answered. "Can you get a fix on us? We may need protection getting back." "Back?" Whitwer gazed at him unbelievingly. "You're coming in? You're giving yourself up?" "I am, yes." Speaking rapidly, urgently, Anderton added, "There's something you must do immediately. Close off the monkey block. Make certain nobody gets in, Page or anyone else, especially army people." "Kaplan," the miniature image said. "What about him?" "He was here. He just left." Anderton's heart stopped beating. "What was he doing?" "Picking up data. Transcribing duplicates of our precog reports on you. He insisted he wanted them solely for his protection." "Then he's already got it," Anderton said. "It's too late." Alarmed, Whitwer almost shouted, "Just what do you mean? What's happening?" "I'll tell you," Anderton said heavily, "when I get back to my office." Chapter 8. Whitwer met him on the roof of the police building. As the small ship came to rest, a cloud of escort ships dipped their fins and sped off. Anderton immediately approached the blonde-haired young man. "You've got what you wanted," he told him. "You can lock me up and send me to the detention camp, but that won't be enough." Whitwer's blue eyes were pale with uncertainty. "I'm afraid I don't understand. It's not my fault. I should have never left the police building. Where's Wally Page?" "We've already clamped down on him," Whitwer replied. "He won't give us any trouble." Anderton's face was grim. "You're holding him for the wrong reason," he said. "Letting me into the monkey block was no crime, but passing information to the army is. You've had an army plant working here." He corrected himself a little lamely. "I mean, I have. I've called back the order on you. Now the teams are looking for Kaplan." "Any luck?" "He left here in an army truck. We followed him, but the truck got into the militarized barracks. Now they've got a big wartime R3 tank blocking the street. It would be civil war to move it aside." Slowly, hesitantly, Lisa made her way from the ship. She was still pale and shaken, and on her throat an ugly bruise was forming. "What happened to you?" Whitwer demanded. Then he caught sight of Fleming's inert form laying spread out inside. Facing Anderton squarely, he said, "Then you finally stop pretending this is some conspiracy of mine." "I have." "You don't think I'm plotting to get your job?" He made a disgusted face. "Plotting to get your job?" "Sure you are. Everybody's guilty of that sort of thing, and I'm plotting to keep it. But this is something else, and you're not responsible." "Why do you assert," Whitwer inquired, "that it's too late to turn yourself in? My God, we'll put you in the camp. The week will pass and Kaplan will still be alive." "He'll be alive, yes," Anderton conceded, "but he can prove he'd be just as alive if I were walking the streets. He has the information that proves the majority report obsolete. He can break the pre-crime system." He finished. "Heads or tails, he wins, and we lose. The army discredits us. Their strategy paid off. But why are they risking so much? What exactly do they want? After the Anglo-Chinese War, the army lost out. It isn't what it was in the good old AFWA days. They ran the complete show, both military and domestic, and they did their own police work. Like Fleming, Lisa said faintly. After the war, the West Block was demilitarized. Officers like Kaplan were retired and discarded. Nobody likes that. Anderton grimaced. I can sympathize with him. He's not the only one. But we couldn't keep on running things that way. We had to divide up authority. You say Kaplan has won, Whitwer said. Isn't there anything we can do? I'm not going to kill him. We know it and he knows it. Probably he'll come around and offer us some kind of deal. We'll continue to function, but the Senate will abolish our real pull. You wouldn't like that, would you? I should say not, Whitwer answered emphatically. One of these days I'm going to be running this agency, he flushed. Not immediately, of course. Anderton's expression was somber. It's too bad you publicized the majority report. If you had kept it quiet, we could cautiously draw it back in. But everybody's heard about it. We can't retract it now. I guess not, Whitwer admitted awkwardly. Maybe I don't have this job down as neatly as I imagined. You will in time. You'll be a good police officer. You'll believe in the status quo. But learn to take it easy. Anderton moved away from them. I'm going to study the data tapes of the majority report. I want to find out exactly how I was supposed to kill Kaplan. Reflectively, he finished. It might give me some ideas. The data tapes of the precogs, Donna and Mike, were separately stored. Choosing the machinery responsible for the analysis of Donna, he opened the protective shield and laid out the contents. As before, the code informed him which reels were relevant, and in a moment he had the tape transport mechanism in operation. It was approximately what he had suspected. This was the material utilized by Jerry, the superseded time path. In it, Kaplan's military intelligence agents kidnapped Anderton as he drove home from work. Taking to Kaplan's villa, the organization GHQ of the International Veterans League. Anderton was given an ultimatum: voluntarily disband the pre-crime system or face open hostilities with the army. In this discarded time path, Anderton, as police commissioner, had turned to the Senate for support. No support was forthcoming. To avoid a civil war, the Senate ratified the dismemberment of the police system and decreed a return to military law to cope with the emergency. Taking a corps of fanatical police, Anderton had located Kaplan and shot him, along with other officials of the Veterans League. Only Kaplan had died. The others had been patched up, and the coup had been successful. This was Donna. He rewound the tape and turned to the material previewed by Mike. It would be identical. Both precogs had combined to present a unified picture. Mike began as Donna had begun. Anderton had become aware of Kaplan's plot against the police. But something was wrong. Puzzled, he ran the tape back to the beginning. Incomprehensibly, it didn't jibe. Again, he relayed the tape, listening intently. The Mike report was quite different from the Donna report. An hour later, he had finished his examination, put away the tapes, and left the monkey block. As soon as he emerged, Whitwer asked, "What's the matter? I can see something's wrong." "No," Anderton answered slowly, still deep in thought. "Not exactly wrong." A sound came to his ears. He walked vaguely over to the window and peered out. The street was crammed with people. Moving down the center lane, was a 4-column line of uniformed troops, rifles, helmets, marching soldiers in their dingy wartime uniforms, carrying the cherished pennants of AFWA flapping in the cold afternoon wind. An army rally, Whitwer explained bleakly. I was wrong. They're not going to make a deal with us. Why should they? Kaplan's going to make it public. Anderton felt no surprise. He's going to read the Minority Report? Apparently, they're going to demand the Senate disband us and take away our authority. They're going to claim we've been arresting innocent men. Nocturnal police raids, that sort of thing. Rule by terror. You suppose the Senate will yield? Whitwer hesitated. I wouldn't want to guess. I'll guess, Anderton said. They will. That business out there fits with what I learned downstairs. We've got ourselves boxed in, and there's only one direction we can go. Whether we like it or not, we'll have to take it. His eyes had a steely glint. But, Whitwer said, astonished, the Majority Report has been superseded. I can do it, Anderton informed him, but it's going to cost. You're familiar with the statutes governing first-degree murder? Life imprisonment. At least. Probably you could pull a few wires and get it commuted to exile. I could be sent to one of those colony planets. The good old frontier. Would you prefer that? Hell no, Anderton said heartily, but it would be the lesser of two evils. And it's got to be done. I don't see how you can kill Kaplan. Anderton got the heavy-duty military weapon Fleming had tossed to him. I'll use this. They won't stop you? Why should they? They've got that Minority Report that says I've changed my mind. Then the Minority Report is incorrect? No, Anderton said. It's absolutely corrected. But I'm gonna murder Kaplan anyhow. Chapter 9. He had never killed a man. He had never even seen a man killed. And he had been police commissioner for 30 years. For this generation, deliberate murder had died out. It simply didn't happen. A police car barrier carried him to within a block of the army rally. There, in the shadows of the back seat, he painstakingly examined the pistol Fleming had provided to him. It seemed to be intact. Actually, he had no doubt of the outcome. He was absolutely certain of what would happen within the next half hour. Putting the pistol back together, he opened the door of the parked car and stepped warily out. Nobody paid the slightest attention to him. Surging masses of people pushed eagerly forward, trying to get within hearing distance of the rally. Army uniforms predominated, and at the perimeter of the clear area, a line of tanks and major weapons was displayed, formidable armament still in production. Army had erected a metal speaker's stand and ascending steps. Behind this stand hung the vast AFWA banner, emblem of the combined powers that had fought in the war. By a curious corrosion of time, the AFWA's Veterans League included officers from the wartime enemy, but a general was a general, and fine distinctions had faded over the years. Occupying the first rows of seats sat the high brass of the AFWA command. Behind them came junior commissioned officers. Regimental banners swirled in a variety of colors and symbols. In fact, the occasion had taken on the aspect of a festive pageant. On the raised stand itself sat stern-faced dignitaries of the Veterans League, all of them with tense expectancy. At the extreme edges, almost unnoticed, waited a few police units, ostensibly to keep the peace. Actually, they were informants making observations. If order were kept, the army would maintain it. The late afternoon wind carried the muffled booming of many people packed tightly together. As Anderton made his way through the dense mob, he was engulfed by the solid presence of humanity. An eager sense of anticipation held everybody rigid. The crowd seemed to sense that something spectacular was on the way. With difficulty, Anderton forced his way past rows of seats and over to the tight knot of army officials at the edge of the platform. Kaplan was among them, but he was now General Kaplan. The vest, the gold pocket watch, the cane, the conservative business suit, all were gone. For this event, Kaplan had got his old uniform from its mothballs. Straight and impressive, he stood surrounded by what had been his general staff. He wore his service bars, his medals, his boots, his decorative short sword, and his visored cap. It was amazing how transformed a bald man became under the stark potency of an officer's peaked and visored cap. Noticing Anderton, General Kaplan broke away from the group and strode to where the younger man was standing. The expression on his thin, mobile countenance showed how incredulously glad he was to see the Commissioner of Police. "This is a surprise," he informed Anderton, holding out his small, gray-gloved hand. "It was my impression you had been taken in by the acting commissioner." "I'm still out," Anderton answered shortly, shaking hands. After all, Whitwer has the same reel of tape. He indicated the package Kaplan clutched in his steely fingers and met the man's gaze confidently. In spite of his nervousness, General Kaplan was in good humor. "This is a great occasion for the army," he revealed. "You'll be glad to hear I'm going to give the public a full account of the spurious charge brought against you." "Fine," Anderton answered non-committally. "It will be made clear that you were unjustly accused." General Kaplan was trying to discover what Anderton knew. "Did Fleming have an opportunity to acquaint you with the situation?" "To some degree," Anderton replied. "You're going to read only the Minority Report? That's all you got there?" "I'm going to compare it to the Majority Report." General Kaplan signaled an aide and a leather briefcase was produced. "Everything is there. All the evidence we need," he said. "You don't mind being an example, do you? Your case symbolizes the unjust arrests of countless individuals." Stiffly, General Kaplan examined his wristwatch. "I must begin. Will you join me on the platform?" "Why?" Coldly, but with a kind of repressed vehemence, General Kaplan said, "So they can see the living proof. You and I together, the killer and his victim, standing side by side, exposing the whole sinister fraud which the police have been operating." "Gladly," Anderton agreed. "What are we waiting for?" Disconcerted, General Kaplan moved toward the platform. Again, he glanced uneasily at Anderton, as if visibly wondering why he had appeared and what he really knew. His uncertainty grew as Anderton willingly mounted the steps of the platform and found himself a seat directly beside the speaker's podium. "You fully comprehend what I'm going to say?" General Kaplan demanded. "The exposure will have considerable repercussions. It may cause the Senate to reconsider the basic validity of the pre-crime system." "I understand," Anderton answered, arms folded. "Let's go." A hush had descended on the crowd, but there was a restless, eager stirring when General Kaplan obtained the briefcase and began arranging this material in front of him. "The man sitting at my side," he began, in a clean, clipped voice, "is familiar to you all. You may be surprised to see him, for until recently was described by the police as a dangerous killer." The eyes of the crowd focused on Anderton. Avidly, they peered at the only potential killer they had ever been privileged to see at close range. "Within the last few hours, however," General Kaplan continued, "the police order for his arrest has been cancelled because former Commissioner Anderton voluntarily gave himself up? No, that is not strictly accurate. He is sitting here. He has not given himself up, but the police are no longer interested in him. John Allison Anderton is innocent of any crime in the past, present, and future. The allegations against him were patent frauds, diabolical distortions of a contaminated penal system based on a false premise. A vast, impersonal engine of destruction grinding men and women to their doom." Fascinated, the crowd glanced from Kaplan to Anderton. Everyone was familiar with the basic situation. Many men have been seized and imprisoned under the so-called prophylactic pre-crime structure, General Kaplan continued, his voice gaining feeling and strength. "Accused not of crimes they have committed, but of crimes they will commit. It is asserted that these men, if allowed to remain free, will at some future time commit felonies. But there can be no valid knowledge about the future. As soon as precognitive information is obtained, it cancels itself out. The assertion that this man will commit a future crime is paradoxical. The very act of possessing this data renders it spurious. In every case, without exception, the report of the 3 police precogs had invalidated their own data. If no arrests had been made, there would still have been no crimes committed." Anderton listened idly, only half hearing the words. The crowd, however, listened with great interest. General Kaplan was now gathering up a summary made from the Minority Report. He explained what it was and how it come into existence. From his coat pocket, Anderton slipped out his gun and held it in his lap. Already, Kaplan was laying aside the Minority Report, the precognitive material obtained from Jerry. His lean, bony fingers groped for the summary of first Donna, then after that Mike. "This was the original Majority Report," he explained. "The assertion, made by the first 2 precogs, that Anderton would commit a murder. Now here is the automatically invalidated material. I shall read it to you." He whipped out his rimless glasses, fitted them to his nose, and started slowly to read. A queer expression appeared on his face. He halted, stammered, and abruptly broke off. The papers fluttered from his hands. Like a cornered animal, he spun, crouched, and dashed from the speaker's stand. For an instant, his distorted face flashed past Anderton. On his feet now, Anderton raised the gun, stepped quickly forward, and fired. Tangled up in the rows of feet projecting from the stairs that filled the platform, Kaplan gave a single shrill shriek of agony and fright. Like a ruined bird, he tumbled, fluttering and flailing from the platform to the ground below. Anderton stepped to the railing, but it was already over. Kaplan, as the Majority Report had asserted, was dead, His thin chest was a smoking cavity of darkness, crumbling ash that broke loose as the body lay twitching. Sickened, Anderton turned away and moved quickly between the rising figures of stunned army officers. The gun, which he still held, guaranteed that he would not be interfered with. He leaped from the platform and edged his way into the chaotic mass of people at its base. Stricken, horrified, they struggled to see what had happened. It would take time for acceptance to replace blind terror. At the periphery of the crowd, Anderton was seized by waiting police. "You're lucky to get out," one of them whispered to him as the car crept cautiously ahead. "I guess I am," Anderton replied remotely. He settled back and tried to compose himself. He was trembling and dizzy. Abruptly, he leaned forward and was violently sick. "The poor devil," one of the cops murmured sympathetically. Through the swirls of misery and nausea, Anderton was unable to tell whether the cop was referring to Kaplan or to himself. Chapter 10. 4 burly policemen assisted Lisa and John Anderton in the packing and loading of their possessions. In 50 years, the ex-commissioner of police had accumulated a vast collection of material goods. Somber and pensive, he stood watching the procession of crates on their way to the waiting trucks. By truck, they would go directly to the field, and from there to the Centaurus X by intersystem transport. A long trip for an old man, but he wouldn't have to make it back. "There goes the second to last crate," Lisa declared, absorbed and preoccupied by the task. In sweater and slacks, she roamed through the barren rooms, checking on last-minute details. "I suppose we won't be able to use these new Atronic appliances. They're still using electricity on Centon." "I hope you don't care too much," Anderton said. "We'll get used to it," Lisa replied and gave him a fleeting smile. "Won't we?" "I hope so." "You're positive you'll have no regrets?" "If I thought—" "No regrets," Lisa assured him. "Now, suppose you help me with this crate." As they boarded the lead truck, Whitwer drove up in a patrol car. He leaped out and hurried up to them, his face looking strangely haggard. "Before you take off," he said to Anderton, "you'll have to give me a breakdown on the situation with the precogs. I'm getting inquiries from the Senate. They want to find out if the middle report, the retraction, was an error or what." Confusedly, he finished. I still can't explain it. The minority report was wrong, wasn't it?" "Which minority report?" Anderton inquired, amused. Whitwer blinked. "Then that is it. I might have known." Seated in the cabin of the truck, Anderton got out his pipe and shook tobacco into it. With Lisa's lighter, he ignited the tobacco and began operations. Lisa had gone back to the house, wanting to be sure nothing vital had been overlooked. "There were 3 minority reports," he told Whitwer, enjoying the young man's confusion. Someday Whitwer would learn not to wade into situations he didn't fully understand. Satisfaction was Anderton's final emotion. Old and worn out as he was, he had been the only one to grasp the real nature of the problem. The 3 reports were consecutive, he explained. The first was Donna. In that time path, Kaplan told me of the plot, and I promptly murdered him. Jerry, phased slightly ahead of Donna, used her report as data. He factored in my knowledge of the report. In that, the second time path, all I wanted to do was keep my job. It wasn't Kaplan I wanted to kill. It was my own position in life that I was interested in. And Mike was the third report? that came after the Minority Report? Whitwer corrected himself. I mean, it came last? Mike was the last of the three, yes. Faced with the knowledge of the first report, I decided not to kill Kaplan. That produced report 2. But faced with that report, I changed my mind back. Report 2, Situation 2, was the situation Kaplan wanted to create. It was to the advantage of the police to recreate Position 1. And by that time, I was thinking of the police. I had figured out what Kaplan was doing. The third report invalidated the second one. In the same way, the second one invalidated the first. That brought us back where we started from. Lisa came over, breathless and gasping. Let's go, we're all finished here. Lithe and agile, she ascended the metal rungs of the truck and squeezed in beside her husband and the driver. The latter obediently started the truck and others followed. Each report was different, Anderton concluded. Each was unique, but 2 of them agreed on one point. If I left free, I would kill Kaplan. That created the illusion of a majority report. Actually, that's all it was, an illusion. Donna and Mike previewed the same event, but in 2 totally different time paths, occurring under totally different situations. Donna and Jerry, the so-called minority report and half of the majority report, were incorrect. Of the 3, Mike was correct, since no report came after his to invalidate him. That sums it up. Anxiously, Whitwer trotted along beside the truck, his smooth, blonde face creased with worry. Will it happen again? Should we overhaul the setup? It can happen only in one circumstance, Anderton said. My case was unique, since I had access to the data. It could happen again, but only to the next police commissioner, so watch your step. Briefly, he grinned, deriving no inconsiderable comfort from Whitwer's strained expression. Beside him, Lisa's red lips twitched, and her hand reached out and closed over his. Better keep your eyes open, he informed young Whitwer. It might happen to you at any time. And that's it. And that's the Minority Report by Philip K. Dick. We read another of his stories, and always a pleasure. So I hope you enjoyed that. I did. I enjoyed it because maybe I'm forgetting, but this had so much more action than stuff that we normally read. So I enjoyed it. That's fun for me to read. We read a lot of kind of I don't know, theological type stuff on this channel. So I enjoyed the action scenes while still opening up a science fiction discussion on things we may encounter in the future. Who knows? I mean, this is I don't think it'll be in the same way with mutant people, but it could happen with like AI, you know? Can't they take all of the data of all prisoners ever and create the most advanced profile? I mean, how far along would that really be? I don't know, probably not that long. And then just determine whether or not you're likely to commit a crime in the future and then put you away. But this one, I really enjoyed the movie too. The movie approached it a lot differently towards the last half, I think. And the movie was fun too. So, but I really like this. Sometimes we read these short stories that have inspired movies, and usually the short story is very like sedentary compared to the movie, obviously, but I thought this was plenty of action for a short story, so I enjoyed it. I hope you did, and I hope this had a lot more energy and was a lot more pleasing than the first part when I was in my last schedule, where I was reading that at like 3 a.m. after waking up every morning at like 8 a.m. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And you can look forward to more science fiction short stories in the future, maybe even this week. The only other two that I really need to finish up are Anthem by Ayn Rand and 1984. But expect a lot more sci-fi dystopian short stories. So, and I always take requests like in the Discord, but I do need to catch up on some things. So please have patience if you do want to recommend something. But yeah, I'm going to take a little break and then get into a game to in the next like 30 minutes or less. So thank you for joining or enjoying this if you're watching it on like YouTube, and I hope you have a good day or night, whatever it is where you are, and until next time, bye. Oh, hi. Hi, Becca. Oh, sorry, girl. Yeah, I finished it yesterday, and I thought about you because I redid it twice. Not the whole thing, but I redid that last chapter twice because it was crazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, that was entertaining. I had a good time. I did post it. Oh yeah, and I it's kind of complicated because there's no way for me to tell how long the reading will be, and then I take like a little break before the game, so I really don't know how to post what I'm going to be, like what time everything's gonna happen. And I tried a thing because keeping like Americans in mind, I start the stream now pretty early. So I started doing it's been one day, but I was thinking of doing the gaming after now so that it's a little closer to when people are actually settling down for the day. But everything is still like, I'm still figuring it out. So hopefully. Oh, really? Okay. I think I was gonna play, have you heard of Death Delivery? I was gonna play that game, probably in the next like 30 minutes. And, but I did see in my Discord, Alyssa, I think she added a bunch of recommendations. So I might look at those. But I was going to play, Death Delivery. But thanks for checking in, Becca. So yeah, it's 3. I'll be back by 3:30 with a game. Okay, then if you're around, we can experience it together. How about that? So yeah, I'll be back as soon as I can, but definitely by 3:30. Thanks so much for popping in. Okay, I'll see you. Bye.